Hey, good evening, everybody. It's our second day back, and hopefully the equipment's all working fine. I did some checks here, and things look okay. And got a pretty good view from the bird's eye camera just a few hours ago over our part of North Texas. And you can see that cumulus up there building, and we've actually got rumbles of thunder out there right now. All right, let's go to the charts and see what's going on. Couple fronts across Texas all the way back to the southern Appalachians, and a second front up near the Great Lakes all the way up to Iowa and Nebraska. Monsoon is in full effect. If we take a look out west, you can see the lows out over Arizona and Utah. It's going to be right in this area right here, and that's helping to draw moisture up from Mexico northward. And if we look at precipitable water, which we will a little bit later, you'll see some of that moisture making it up into the Four Corners and Arizona. And Arizona has actually got a slight risk today right in that area. This is that time of year where they get those haboob downdrafts, big dusty clouds of outflow. And I actually went to high school in Arizona, in Tucson, and they actually hit that pretty hard, the dust. And they spent like an hour teaching us how to drive in dust, and very wisely they told us to get off the road and turn off the lights. And it's better not to be seen, otherwise somebody might think you're in traffic ahead of them and plow right into you. I don't have any views of any storms out in that area, but I'm sure if we take a look at the internet, you might want to do that a little bit later. You may see some interesting webcam footage. Let's overlay the temperatures, see what things are looking like. We've got that heat wave out over the northwest U.S., and there we can see 102 in Spokane, 102 at Pendleton, and 104 at Boise. So the heat is definitely in full effect. We got 93 in Portland and 84 in Seattle. So, yeah, big heat wave over that part of the country. 106. It's crazy. It's as hot in Winnemucca as it is in Las Vegas. All right, further out to the east, let's see what's happening. Got the southerly flow in Texas, but it's being blocked by that front and the outflow stretching east-west through Texas, and up north, the flow is kind of light and variable. Then over the eastern U.S., we've got the northwesterly flow in full effect, the upper level flow kind of doing like this right here. So that's helping to push a lot of the low-level air from northwest to southeast and bringing the temperatures down to 75 there in New York, and only the low to mid-80s in Indiana and Ohio. And then just a quick look at Florida. Looks like a pretty calm pattern there. So without that breeze, it's probably pretty sultry in that area. Temperatures 80, dew point 72, and basically, yeah, we do have the Bermuda high stretching out over the southeast U.S., but the center of that ridge is kind of parked over Florida right there, so they're not getting the good easterly flow. Most of that is further out to the south in that area. Okay, that gives us a pretty good look at the surface chart. Let me just take a quick look over in chat, make sure there's no disasters going on. Got Carl Berghoff there, Thomas Copeland, David Lumbert, and Christian Flock. Good to see you all. And let's switch over to the see what's happening up in Alaska. We don't take a look up there too often. But there we've got a front up there near the Brooks Range out to Yukon, Yellowknife. Let's put the temperatures up. It is definitely colder up in that area. You can see the temperatures are down. Normally they run in the 60s and 70s, and you can see they're down in the 50s and 60s in that part of the country. And up to the north, Barrow and Prudhoe Bay, around 40. So, yeah, we're starting to see some of the first taste of winter here. And up in the high Arctic of Canada, 34, 41, yeah, it's kind of cold. And there's a few 77, 82, but that's bad data. But that's something you can use with digital atmosphere. You can just kind of round them up like that and go into your quality control and delete them. That's one thing you can't do on the internet with internet charts when there's bad data. You can't correct everything. So now we can see the bad data is gone. If we run the analysis, we're no longer looking at that kind of problem there. All right, let's head to the upper level charts. Let's see. Oh yeah, we can look at the radar a bit. There's some of that thunderstorm activity across North Texas, and we can see the outflow out around the Fort Worth area from about, looks like around Mansfield, down to about Granbury, and all the way up to north of Stephenville. And if we run the animation, you can see that outflow spreading out. So let's see, where's my drawing tool? Let's see if I can get that back here. Yeah, there it is right there. Pretty good outflow, and if you look very carefully, you can probably pick out a couple more. I think there's probably one in there also, and probably a few more outflow boundaries further to the south. So that's pretty spectacular, and sometimes you can use the spectrum width to really pull that out. Not all the time, but especially when it's cutting through precip, the spectrum width can really show you where the outflow is located. All right, let's go to the upper levels. All right, where's the, let's see. I'm trying to find my charts here. Good grief, did I lose all the charts? Okay, well, we'll just have to build them back up. No, here they are. All right. SPC risk areas, there's that slight risk there in Arizona. That's going to be mostly for gusty winds right there, and looks like some thunderstorm activity up there around Chicago and Detroit. Let's go to the upper level charts. This is 250 millibars showing the polar front jet up there in northern Canada. You can see the northwesterly flow up there in the Great Lakes out to New York and New England. And that puts the Great Plains also kind of under a northwesterly flow. A couple of troughs going through that pattern. There's one right there. Here's a very strong one. And there's evidence here of probably an upper level low kind of shearing off right there in Kansas. Let's go to the satellite, see if we can pick that out. This is going to be the water vapor imagery here. So we're going to be looking in this area here in Kansas, and we roll that, and yeah, there's that low right there. And yeah, we can even see the one up there in South Dakota. So this is where we were looking at those troughs, and the NAM forecast may actually show that shearing off and drifting down into Texas. Let's go to the 500 millibar chart there. There's a big subtropical high right there across Nevada and Idaho, helping to keep the temperatures up quite a bit. 700 millibars really reflects that heat. This is up at 10,000 feet. We've got a temperature of 17 Celsius there at Elko. That's going to be about 63 Fahrenheit. So yeah, very warm temperatures in place in that region. And then down at 850, this is where I start looking more at the flow, at the winds and the dew points. And you can see that little front right there. To the north of that, winds are out of the northeast, and to the south, they're out of the southwest, like that right there. So flow is coming together right in that area. And keep in mind, this is about 7 in the morning this morning. So there's been some changes over the past several hours. And dew points are pretty high. There's 15 Celsius there at Fort Worth. That's going to be about 59 dew points, and they're also in the 50s across much of Texas and Louisiana. Now we're going to start looking in terms of fronts, and we usually go to the thickness chart. And what we look for here is the gradients. And what I'm looking at is the red lines. See these red dashed lines? Very strong gradient right there off the west coast. That's indicating a boundary between cold and warm air. Looks like another boundary or another gradient up in Canada, right in this area right here, and another one off in Newfoundland. So keeping that in mind, it's very easy to place the fronts. We keep the fronts on the south side of those zones. And there's our cold front there in New York and Massachusetts, Pittsburgh. And then we've got another series of fronts up there in Manitoba. And this is techniques you can use on your own anytime. It's pretty simple. Like I said, you just pick out the tight gradients, kind of like what I showed you right in here, and then you put the fronts on the south side of those gradients. So we work through that and we get a frontal pattern kind of like that right there. So the front is making it into the coastal range there in Washington, coming on shore, but most of the warm air is still over Seattle and Portland, and hasn't advanced much over the past 2 days. That's because much of it is going northeast. And then, of course, Alaska, being very cool, they're on the north side of that frontal zone. So this is where all the cold air is, and they're definitely enjoying that up there. And then you can see some evidence of the subtropical ridge right here. If I outline the thickness, it makes this hump right there, and right in the center, that's the subtropical ridge, and that's where we find the heat, right there in the Great Basin region. Precipitable water, this becomes very important in July, August, and September. You can pretty closely correlate chances of precipitation to precipitable water. This is a measure of how much water vapor there is in the column all the way from the surface up to the top of the atmosphere. If you precipitated all of it out, that's how much you would have in your rain gauge. So over East Texas, the dark green here indicating 2 inches. If you could squeeze all that moisture out, 2 inches of rain there in that part of the country. And also South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, they're also getting that 1.5 to 2 inch precipitable water. So about the only time you would not be able to extract that moisture is when you're underneath an upper level ridge, because there you have the problem of very strong stability, and that helps to suppress convective activity, so the moisture just kind of hangs around out there. If there's southerly flow, it'll go up to the north. And in this case, though, the subtropical ridge is over the western U.S., so it's pretty much open season for precip in Texas and Oklahoma, the Mississippi River Valley, and the southeast there. All right, let's check out a couple of soundings. Guess we'll do Fort Worth, of course. There we go. Fort Worth sounding this morning, showing dew points in the 60s and 50s through a very deep layer, all the way up to about 10,000 feet. This is all very humid air. That's typically what we see this time of year. The only thing that's kind of unusual, we don't really have an easterly flow. We do tend to get into those kinds of easterly patterns in August and September, where if we look at this right here, it'll show like wind barbs facing out to the east like that. But we've got a westerly flow, kind of a west-northwest flow, which makes it kind of unusual. So we're kind of getting the benefits of tropical moisture in the lower levels and some of the dry air advecting aloft, and that helps to increase the downburst potential and gives us a lot of outflow from those storms, a lot of outflow pool generation. Let's look at Tucson, where they've got that slight risk. And what do we see here? I'm surprised. This is not an inverted V sounding, which is typically what we see in Arizona during the summer. It's actually a very humid column, very similar to Texas, surprisingly. Atmosphere looks pretty well sheared. We've got easterly flow in the low levels there, contrasting with westerly flow. That's going to be about 80 knots of shear between the lower levels and the upper levels. So that's pretty significant right there. And we'll go up to Boise, where it's extremely hot. This is how it looked this morning. Yeah, very dry there. Dew points in the 30s and 20s, and very warm column. Let's see how that changed during the day. We don't often look at Boise soundings, so yeah, this is definitely interesting. All right. Yeah, there's the evening sounding right there at Boise, and it's off the scale. There it is right there. There's the temperature plot showing about 105, 106 Fahrenheit, and that's dry adiabatic all the way up to about 12,000 feet. If we had just the slightest amount of moisture, we could certainly get some high base storms going in this kind of sounding. All right, let's keep things moving along here, and we'll look at the satellite. And thanks to College of DuPage for the satellite imagery. You can see the smoke rounding the top of that subtropical ridge there in the Dakotas. Let's run the animation. There's those storms up there in the Milwaukee and Madison area out to Detroit. Texas, of course, getting storms, and let's zoom in on that. I'm going to run this back to earlier today because this is kind of what you would be seeing if you were trying to forecast the weather. You would see, well, there's a lot of cirriform clouds across the Dallas and Abilene area, some cumulus fields down in the Houston area, and we can kind of outline the low-level flow, kind of going like that right there. And we can see the start of a sea breeze moving onshore right there. This is the time on this image is 11:12 a.m. So we'll run this forward. You can see the sea breeze get going, Houston getting its usual early afternoon showers. And there's those storms going up there in Houston. And then up to the north, you can see some evidence of maybe a outflow boundary kind of in this area. Let's roll that forward a little more. And yeah, we get the storms going up. This is that outflow boundary from last night's storms. There it is right there. So this is the focus for storms in North Texas, and then, of course, the sea breeze, another focus for storms. And then we finish that up. Lots of thunderstorm activity and a lot of cirrus clouds. This is probably debris from the monsoon storms being picked up by that westerly flow and advected into Texas. So kind of a mostly cloudy pattern in this part of the country. Southeast U.S., similar situation. You can see the outflow from around Macon down to Montgomery all the way to Jackson. Storms going up, very similar mechanism as we have in Texas, and we'll probably see redevelopment tomorrow wherever that outflow ends up. So if you are forecasting for Alabama and Georgia, you would track that outflow very carefully over the overnight hours. Maybe look at mesoscale models, and that'll give you a starting point for forecasting tomorrow morning. A little thunder out there. All right, so yeah, the Midwest, they've got northwesterly flow in that area. There's those storms there around Madison and south of Milwaukee. It's moving into the Chicago area, so I would expect some flight delays in the next couple of hours there at Chicago O'Hare. And let's move along. Yeah, we already looked at the water vapor, and yeah, that's pretty much it right there. So let's head into the forecast, and let me just take a quick look at chat. Picking up some viewers here. Tom Savage, big storm in Houston. Yeah, getting that sea breeze there. Small meso. Sagan's Run is here, and Willie Greenway there in Georgia. Carl Berghoff, Sue M., Ryan. Ryan got some storms there in Florida. Sahara dust, yeah. Wonder if let me see if I have that Aqua and Terra imagery. Yeah, looks like I do. Let me show this to you here. Tracking the dust. Okay, this hasn't updated. Let me see if I can refresh this here. I was looking at this earlier this morning, and I guess that site doesn't auto-update. So anyway, we'll let those frames come in and get the latest imagery. And yeah, there's that dust right there in the Caribbean. This is going to be probably about 5 or 6 hours ago. So Florida is right there on the edge of that dust, but the bulk of it is over Cuba, Belize, Nicaragua, and the Yucatan. So I think there's a good chance of that heading into Texas probably late in the weekend into early next week. That'll probably be picked up by the southwesterly flow. The trajectories are running like that right there. Let me give you the state borders. There we go. They're coming up there. So let me animate this. August 6th, there it is coming into Dominica and Cuba. August 7th, continuing to move westward. August 8th, and then today. So definitely moving into the Gulf. It's going to be right over the Gulf tomorrow into Saturday, and then into Texas and maybe part of the southeast later in the weekend. All right, the forecast. Let's start out with Texas. Usually I look at Texas because, you know, we are in Texas and that's where all the video is, and that's what I'm tracking most closely. And even if you're not interested in Texas weather, you can apply this to your own forecast. The weather works the same wherever you are. So, yeah, this will work in the southeast U.S. if the pattern is the same. So, yeah, there's the thunderstorm activity there around the Fort Worth, Waco, and Corsicana area with a northwesterly flow and aloft in the low-level southerly flow. That's a good setup for northwest flow thunderstorms. Those tend to be nocturnal, and yeah, it looks like this is the overnight hours, 4 to 5, 6 a.m. Looks like a lot of storms in the Waco, Palestine, Lufkin, and Temple area. And I would expect that outflow to kind of be sitting like this tomorrow morning, and that's going to be the focus for development tomorrow afternoon. So I would expect lots of storms in the Houston area, maybe up to the Woodlands, College Station, and Austin, and maybe San Antonio. All right, looking at the rest of the country, here's the 500 millibar chart. There's that strong upper level ridge. Let's see what happens over the next couple days. Looks like that reaches out into the Dakotas and Minnesota. So it's going to be hot up in the northern plains this weekend. And then down in the southern U.S., it looks like that upper level low shears off. This is kind of like a tropical upper tropospheric trough. And yeah, there it is right there. You can see that those contours elongate. The low located right there over Oklahoma on Saturday morning. And then it closes off across Texas, located about right there. So it looks like a rainy pattern over the weekend, anywhere from East Texas all the way to West Texas, out in that area there. And then the low just kind of drifts up into the panhandles and southern Colorado. So that'll probably start taking some of the precip to the northwest. All right, looking at the long term, I'm going to use the precipitable water since that kind of dominates the weather. Get that centered for you. There we go. Wow, there's Hurricane John out there off the Baja California region, and that's going to move up to the northwest. A lot of moisture in that for sure. And then you can see the higher precipitable water all the way from Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth, all the way up to Memphis, Nashville, and back towards Charleston. So over the weekend, looks like a lot of the precip is going to focus anywhere from Georgia to southern Mississippi and back towards Austin and Lufkin. And let's see here. Looks like kind of rainy over the weekend and through those same areas, and then it looks like maybe some of that rain will be shifting to the north as that moisture advects northward. So there it is, heading north. And then the next change coming in from Canada, there's a big cold high. There's the front moving southeast. This is going to be on Monday. And maybe with this moisture heading north towards that front, maybe some severe weather in this part of the country, Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, for maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, somewhere around there. Yeah, see, there's everything coming together for Tuesday, right there in Minnesota and South Dakota. So some more cold air coming in. There's that big high there over Canada, driving that front southward. Most of that cold air will be moving into the Midwest and Northeast. And then it looks like a second push coming in right here for next weekend. And that rapidly moves to the southeast right there. There's that big high. So we'll get another shot of storms for 19th, 20th, 21st. Then some cool, dry air coming into the Midwest. And we'll see a bit of a backdoor front there in Louisiana and Texas. So it looks like more rain. And then a very strong westerly system moving across the northern tier states. So yeah, looks like rain. So that's about all I have to say. All right, let's see here. Sunny and splendid in Denver from Mike Estwick. Shirley Keys dropping in to say hello. Alex Wade, pretty good sell around Fort Worth earlier. And Ryan Toomey seeing some good lightning. Okay, well, that's about all I got for tonight. I appreciate you all watching the webcast, and bring down the sound here. Anyway, yeah, weekend's coming up, so we'll see you tomorrow at the same time, 7 p.m. for Friday, and hopefully you all have a good evening. Take care. Bye-bye.